Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Selamat sore. Welcome back to eduARCHsia 2022 and welcome to our third day. And I hope you had a good time with the parallel session this morning and also yesterday. And you also had a good time during the heritage workshop. And now for the plenary session 2, we're going to have a very special speakers. So we're going to have Prof.Dr. Marcus Hackel and also Professor Matteo Motti. But before we start, I would like to introduce you a little bit about our moderator for today's plenary sessions. The moderator for the plenary session is Arif Budi Soliha, Ph.D. We usually call her Dr. Arif. Dr. Arif Budi Soliha is an associate professor of architecture at Universitas Islam Indonesia. She gained her doctoral degree from the Department of Architecture and Built Environment, University of Nottingham, United Kingdom in 2016. Her master degree from the University Technology Malaysia in 2006 and bachelor degree in architectural engineering from Universitas Gadjah Mada, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Urban conservations, urban street, urban design, and traditional Nusantara architecture are amongst Dr. Arif's research interests. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me to welcome our moderator, Dr. Arif.
Thank you very much, Dr. Herman Felani. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most beneficent. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the universe. Distinguished guests, professors, researchers, students, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our plenary session at the third day of eduARCHsia Conference 2022. My name is Arif Budi Soliha. I'm one of the lecturers at Universitas Islam Indonesia. It is an honor for me to serve as a moderator today. For the last 3 days, more than 70 papers have been presented by researchers from all over the world, such as Germany, Italy, Turkey, Qatar, India, Malaysia, Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, of course, and also Japan. The scope of the discussion covered a wide range of aspects, especially related to the big theme of eduARCHsia 2022, namely sharing the earth in the age of uncertainty. Big issues such as climate change, sustainable energy, heritage conservation, inclusive design, and of course also the challenges and the opportunity of the future of architectural education in Asia and in the world. The last issues is very much in line to our first speakers today. That is Prof.Dr. Marcus Hackel. He is the Vice Dean of the Faculty of Architecture and Design at the Wismar University, Germany. Very good morning, Prof. Hackel. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, perfect. Good morning also to you, or a good day to Indonesia, of course.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. I believe it is very early in Germany, isn't it?
Yeah, the sun just came up this moment.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, before Prof. Hackel delivering his presentation, allow me to read some of his remarkable CV. Prof. Marcus Hackel studied architecture and business management in Germany, Singapore, and also United States. His practice as architect led him from Germany to the Emirates, Southeast Asia, and also China. With partners from Germany, Austria, and China, he established the Munich and Shanghai-based architecture and urban design office, namely the IBO concept, or Intercultural Building Organization. His academic career started at the Berlin University of Technology, where he got his Ph.D. And currently, he serves as the Vice Dean of the Faculty of Architecture and Design at Wismar University. His research explores the effects of globalization on architects and the sustainability marketing for urban design and architecture. His projects are intercultural and sustainability focused and embedded in a worldwide cooperation network. Today, Prof. Hackel will deliver his speech with the title Student Design Build Nature-Based Labs, Experimental Architectural Design for Interdisciplinary Research on Sustainable Development and Environmental Protection in the Amazonas Rainforest. Prof. Hackel, we have 30 minutes for you to deliver your presentation. And for the audience who wants to raise some questions, maybe you can drop your questions on the chat box. And we will also have 30 minutes afterward for the Q&A session. Prof. Hackel, time and screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much for your introduction, and thank you very much for your invitation to join your conference. And I am very happy to hear that this conference has been very successful so far. So I hope to contribute in a good way with my lecture today. Could you please also reconfirm that I can be heard and seen clearly? And now I'm sharing my screen. So I hope that
yes,
my screen is also visible and
yes,
everything
it is
okay.
visible, Prof.
Yep. Okay,
yes,
perfect.
You may proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So where do I get this here? Okay. Yeah. So let me start. Okay. So as you already announced in your introduction, my lecture today, or my speech today, is about a project that is called NB Labs, Experimental Architectural Design for Interdisciplinary Research on Sustainable Development and Environmental Protection in the Amazon Rainforest. We started this project about 2 years ago, and the intensive phase where I was included as an architect and with a special project as part of a larger project started about 1 year ago. We just finalized our building activities in the Amazon rainforest about 1 month ago. So in your topics of the conference, the main focus of this project would be sustainable cities and communities, redefining new concept on sustainability and overcoming inequality of resources and excess of knowledge. So first I want to introduce into the context of this project. This project is a research project sponsored by Erasmus Plus from the European Union, and we have overall 8 universities participating in this project. So from Europe, we have 2 universities from Germany, 1 from Spain, and from South America, we have 2 universities from Peru, 2 universities from Ecuador, and a research center from Ecuador too. So you see a list of these universities who participate. All universities have different roles in this project. So for us in Wismar, we are the main coordinators for the whole project, and we contribute to the special research project on student self-built sustainable architecture, as well as for the final use in biology and biotechnology. So where is this project located? As you can see in the title already, it's located in the Amazon rainforest, of Peru. Here you see it on the map. It's near to the Amazon and the Rio Napo as one of the main contributors in the Amazon, which connects 2 projects in this overall larger project, one in Ecuador and one in Peru. So for the project that I'm talking about today, it's located near Iquitos in the Peruvian Amazon rainforest, As you can see here, it's really in the rainforest, away from the city of Iquitos, next to two smaller villages, Sungarukocha and Ninarumi, and this is a picture I took from the plane when I was arriving to Iquitos. So a little bit of background to this region. For a very long time, it was untouched rainforest, and about 120 years ago, 140 years ago, the rubber changed the world of the original inhabitants of the different Indo tribes, because traders from Europe and the US came to this region, and they started to collect rubber and used lots of the indigenous tribes like slaves to collect rubber. So that caused lots of changes, of course, for this region, and a lot of cultural disruption and also economical disruption of the local inhabitants. There would be a lot to talk about, but that's not the main topic today. But the rubber boom, which only lasted for about 30 years, really changed the world forever in this region. In Iquitos, the biggest town in this region, you can still see lots of grand mansions of this time of rubber. Even house built out of steel in the middle of this picture was shipped from Europe. Some people say that was designed by Eiffel, the engineer who designed the famous Eiffel Tower, as the first prefabricated house to be built in South America about 120 years ago. So huge wealth was developed, but of course this wealth was uneven distributed, so the local Indo tribes suffered a lot and still suffer up today, and Europeans and North Americans earned a lot of money. Up to now, the disruption is still seen for many of these tribes, so we had contact and cooperated with different tribes and got information from different Indo tribes to get some local knowledge about building technologies and also the philosophy of building. And these tribes are quite often disrupted. For example, the Bora tribe, who we work with, was originally based in Colombia, next to the border of Colombia, and now it's living more central in Peru. And here you can see traditional buildings, meeting houses of the Kokoma tribe in Padre Cocha, not too far from Iquitos. In Iquitos we have lots of other issues, and also in the region around Iquitos, issues that have to be solved. So issues of the current living situation. There are lots of poor people who live in not legally clear situation, like here in the large quarter of Belen in Iquitos. This is in between land and water. We have different water levels. You know this from Indonesia too. In the rainy season, the water level is up to 13 meters higher than in the dry season. In the area in between, for half of the year, it's flooded, and for half of the year, it's not flooded. So it's not owned by someone in specific, so the poor people normally settle in these areas. The big problem that we now face, like everywhere in the world, and it's one of the big topics of this conference, it's climate change. So it's not that we have more water, it's more like we have extreme and irregular weather patterns. So for the people living in between, the poor people of Iquitos, that's a big issue, because their life is at risk in some parts of the year. And for us, as a special experience, we decided to build our building in the dry season. But in the dry season, we also see irregular weather patterns. We had extreme rainfall, which was not normal for this part of the year. So another issue that this part of the world is facing are illegal mining activities. Here a picture I took from the plane. with illegal gold mining, for example, in the Upper Uakalli region, which leads then to the Amazon forest. Another topic is deforestation. Of course, wood is a big wealth besides oil and gold currently in the Amazon. And yeah, we have, of course, legal activities to cut wood, but also lots of illegal activities. But besides all these problems that we face in the Amazon region, we also have huge potential. There is a wealth of biodiversity, especially around the area where we built our laboratories. There's a huge biodiversity because of different typologies of natural rainforests still existing over there. And we have another potential, the knowledge of the indigenous cultures, of the Indian traditional knowledge that is still there, but it's in risk to disappear because the living patterns are changing. The people who are dislocated from their original living areas, of course, also are at risk to lose their culture and knowledge. Here's an example of a Bora village at the Rio Momon in the Peru, who moved from Colombia to this part of Peru out of security reasons and economic reasons. So that was a little bit about the background of the Amazon. I think most of you are aware of these issues and you are already familiar with all these challenges that we have in the last remaining areas of the world, this original rainforest. And now we get to our project and to our design goals. So what was it all about? We have a leading philosophy in our project for the new Research and Innovation Center on Sustainable Living and Environmental Protection in Iquitos. The project wants to build laboratories for independent research for the University of UNAP. That's a state-run university in the Amazon rainforest of Peru, the only big one. And currently, most of the research is done by big companies in a very commercial way, and our goal is to foster independent research in the universities of the Amazon rainforest, and here especially in Iquitos for the UNAP. In the end, we want to create a place for researchers, students, and lecturers from all over the world can come together to do research about biodiversity and climate change. So the goals are to foster this nature-based research, support on a long-lasting base student education and research groups. We want to support international cooperation and exchange. We want to create awareness and communication with communities in the rainforest, in the Loreto region in Peru. We want to create identity, which helps the university to be better seen also in the international landscape of research. And of course, the big goal overall is to contribute to sustainability and adaptability in times of climate change and times of problems all over the world, as you already mentioned in the beginning of our presentation today. So what is the program of the buildings to be designed and built finally? We have a laboratory that will be used in the future to analyze samples collected in the rainforest on expeditions done by researchers and students. We want to create a community space, for us the most important part of the project, because this community space should contribute to identity, to exchange, to international work. Then there will be some administration and additional services. So, as always in architectural projects, we start with analysis. So we analyzed the typical conditions in this region. We have extreme rain, we have extreme sun, we have extreme temperatures, we have the problem of mosquitoes with the typical tropical diseases like dengue, malaria, and so on. And this area is also prone with earthquakes. So all this had to be integrated in our design considerations. We did the typical climate location analysis. We did the analysis for the best bioclimatic conditions, because one of our main goals was only to have air conditioning in laboratory parts where it's needed technology-wise, but for the rest, of course, our sustainability approach needed natural cross-ventilation to cool and create the right living conditions. So wind analysis was one of the main things that we analyzed. So in tropical countries, you are very familiar with that, typical things to be done. Then we entered into the site analysis, where to place our buildings. Initially, the plan was to build one big building, but because of design considerations, to create better spaces for community, but also for cross-ventilation and so on, we split the large building into smaller ones and created a plaza. And also cultural-wise, it was very important, because the idea was, and I branded it this way, to create a scientific pueblo, which is part of the building tradition, the non-indigenous building tradition in this area. So, as I said before, it's a design-build project, design-built by students. So the students design this project, the students go deeper into it and do the detailed design, and then they build it with their own hands. The first step normally in these design-build projects is that we split into different student groups, and so these students group developed different proposals, and we had three different proposals talking about the site plan and the urban design aspects, different proposals talking about the construction and also the architectural design. So the first one split in this V form. They proposed different ways to build it. It was a very important issue from the beginning, that all students are aware that in the end we all go to this place and build it with our own hands. So the buildability was a very important issue. Then analysis for cross-ventilation, for sun intake and shade and so on, to create the right climate without air conditioning. The proposal 2 looked this way. It was a more building more in one. Again, the analysis of the building and construction methodology, sun analysis, shade analysis, natural lighting, cross-ventilation, and so on. So that was the image of the second proposal. And the third proposal only included 2 buildings with a very structured way to build the building, and also the possibility to later add additional parts to the building. Again, cross-ventilation, sun analysis, climate analysis, and that was the image of the third one. So what design tools did we use to develop these design proposals? From the beginning, we worked together in Wismar University in Germany, together with UTE University in Quito, Ecuador. And so we needed online-based design tools. Of course, Corona and the special teaching methodologies that have been developed in times of Corona helped us to do this project online-based. So our meetings in Wismar always have been hybrid. Of course, we tried to get together as much as possible. Some Corona disruptions also happened. So sometimes we had to go more online. Sometimes we have been able to meet a lot in person. And to include our partners in Ecuador, we always did it hybrid. So all sessions have been using Big Blue Button. Yeah, so very similar tool to Zoom. But this is our major tool that we use in the university in Wismar. Then we used the design tool Miro Board. Maybe lots of you are also familiar with that. It has a huge benefit that lots of different people can work at the same time on Miro Board, put all their ideas, drawings, and so on it. We can put stickers with remarks as teachers on it, but also the students can work at the same time and contribute, especially if you want to work together in larger groups and internationally, it's great. So you can really use it like being together on a big whiteboard. Everything is very well stored, and you can go back to the whiteboard and all these informations and refer to it all the time. Information is accessible for everybody. So that was a great tool to work with, because now in the next step we had to find a solution to bring together all these different ideas and the pros and cons of each of the proposal into only one, because we have been able to build, of course, only one project in the end. So the third tool that we used was not digital, it was model building, real model building. We started with scales 1 to 50 and then went to 1 to 20, 1 to 10, and finally 1 to 1. And we have a light studio. We can do light simulations for all places all over the world. So the big benefit is that with our light studio in Wismar, we can simulate exactly the place in Peru, or we could also do it for Jakarta, of course. Yeah, so we built our models and checked light simulation here, for example, for a specific day in January, and for overcast situation, not strong sun, and we could check if we could get enough sun in or not for natural light, and also for cross ventilation, but also we could check the shading. So the last thing that we did was to build mock-up models in scale 1 to 1, because one of the problems that we faced for this project was it was very remote. We have not been able to use anything else than putting the whole project together with nails, so wood and nails. So there was no standard joining of the different wood elements like we would do it in Germany. So no standard way to prove that everything would be fine in earthquakes, for example, for our structural engineers. So we built special details of this project and then used it with our structural engineers to simulate earthquake and the forces and pressures that would be there in an earthquake to prove that everything would be fine. And we not only built details out of that, we also built the first elements of our project in scale 1 to 1 in Wismar to check the buildability as well as the feasibility of different details and the overall construction and how to erect the building. So, as I said before, we had to further develop our design, bring together all the 3 different design ideas, and then move forward with only one. So that was done in a workshop week, an intensive week. This is one of the new ideas that we introduced in our faculty. We now have 2 workshop weeks each term, which means there's no standard teaching. These weeks are free for special activities. So it could be a special workshop about one topic that you could choose, or for example, in a design project like ours, we would use this workshop to work intensively from early morning till late at night, only to bring forward our project. So we had these 3 different ideas, and now in an experimental way and discussing things, we came up with one proposal in the end. For this one proposal, we had some keywords that we agreed upon. The main point, as I said before, it's student designed and student built. So I'm, as a professor, together with my partners, I'm with my partners Daniel Höselweg, another professor, and Jan Lieske, the third professor. We just did the moderation. Yeah, we have been the managers of this project, but the ideas, the main topics, have been developed by the students themselves, which creates a lot of connection to the project and creates a right identity for them. So one of the keywords was standardization, because if we have to build this project within 4 weeks only in a remote place with lots of difficulties on site, we should standardize and always think about the buildability. So the form is one thing, but we have to be aware that in the end we have to build it with our own hands. There's no crane, there's no big machinery or whatever. Then we had the topic of prefabrication, which helped to make things faster and more effective. Of course, there was discussion about the context of this building. So you see here the 2 laboratory buildings, the additional building and the building for the communal activities. Then one big topic was to learn from indigenous design concepts, but not copying one, because we have so many different Indo tribes in this region. So if you follow one traditional design topic, it will be good for this one tribe, but will start discussion with the other tribes why we didn't use other forms in detailing and so on. So it was learning about their design concepts, the form, the philosophy, some detailing, but a new interpretation of this building. So in the Amazon region, in this area, each village traditionally had a maloka. And maloka is a shared building, the communal building, the place of identity. So we took this idea of a maloka and created a new maloka scientifica. Yeah, so the scientific main meeting house for this campus. So here you see, finally, we decided for a new location to put it on the edge of an outlying campus, still in the Amazon rainforest and outlying, but connected to already existing lab buildings to make it more effective and more feasible to build. So then we went into the further development of the architectural design and details. As I said before, the scale of the models was bigger and bigger in the end. We did some changes also in the design to make it more remarkable, more special, to bring in more light, to have a better cross-ventilation. And we worked together with our structural engineers in Germany as well as in Ecuador. And then we built our mock-ups in scale 1:1 in Wismar. So exactly the same construction as we would do it in the Amazon forest, to learn what works well, what creates difficulties, to be very effective. So that is how it looks like in Wismar. So then, after having all these things prepared, we gave about 2 months. That was the time agreed upon with our Peruvian partners, 2 months to prepare all the building materials and the site, so that we can immediately start when we come to Peru, and in only 4 weeks to build the project with our own hands. I went there together with my colleague, Professor Jan Bieske, 2 weeks before all the students came to do the final preparations, especially for the foundations and the steel quivers as the foot points of the wood construction. This is the detail of one of the steel quivers. The steel quivers have been necessary to have the right detailing for the earthquake, for all the main frames of wood, but also as an experimental design against insects, and especially the wood-eating insects, termites. So this shows all the tools that we have been able to use for our project. So we had 2 saws, 1 drill, lots of hammers and nails, and that's the end of it, to build a 120 square meter building within 4 weeks with our own hands. I mentioned it before, but I want to stress it. The main topic was for the students in the master degree program to learn not only a good design is important for an architect, but it's about the design, the buildability of the design, the detailing, and also in the end, especially to manage projects. So they had to manage themselves. And here you see one of the introduction, the discussion for the self-management of the students. They prepared samples how to cut the wood as prefabrication, and you see here the prefabrication done in one of the shaded places not too far of our site. Then the prefabricated elements have been carried by hand to the site and erected. So that was the most difficult part, I have to say, in the whole project, because each of these elements had about 500 kilograms. So to erect this was quite difficult, especially because we didn't have any tools to help. Here you see all these prefabricated frames being already put up. And then we had the topic of how to clad the roof. Our preferred material was, of course, again, sustainable material, local material, learning from traditions. So we decided to have a thatched roof of palm leaves in the traditional building method. There's only one road, by the way, leading out of Iquitos, the main town, which is not too far from our building site. There's only one road leading out of this town for about 90 kilometers. You can only reach the town by plane or ship in several days of travel. And on this only one road, there is a place which is famous for these thatched roofs fabrication. So we went there to get things prepared, but we also learned from the Kokoma tribe in Padre how to do these traditional roofings, how to weave it ourselves. So that was great to work together.
Excuse me,
and
Professor Hackel.
Yep.
You only have 2 minutes left.
Okay. I thought because of the half-hour buffer behind, I might talk a little bit longer about it. So originally I had a shorter speech, and now I have a little bit longer. But don't worry too much about it. I'm speeding up. So we learned from indigenous building technologies. So you see the traditional weaving that we applied, and this is traditional weaving for the rich. We cooperated with the neighboring villages, which is also important to integrate the surrounding villages into our project. And here you see how the palm leaf cover is applied to the building. Okay, another thing that we did experimental was normally all foundations and slabs are done in concrete in this region, and we now wanted to introduce a new experimental split bamboo reinforced concrete. We got detailing information from our partners from Ecuador and followed their advice. So you see some of the students from Ecuador preparing the split bamboo. And also we did architectural lighting design and learned again weaving techniques from the Indio tribes around Iquitos. Here you can see our lighting elements that follow traditional weavings. Okay, it's a very important topic, not only to work together, but to develop friendship, multicultural and multinational friendship. So nationalities, who you can see here on this picture, you can see some of the teachers and the students. We had students, of course, from Germany, from Ecuador, from Peru, from Mexico, and from Libya. Another important sign that we wanted to set is it's not always about building new buildings. Real sustainability is to preserve existing buildings. So we had another Maloka not too far from our building site, and we wanted to repair this Maloka so that there is a longer lifespan, because that is a real sustainable approach. So you can see here we replaced elements that have been eaten up by insects already. So what will be the next steps? We decided to have a monitoring program, because we have 5 different typologies of wood in our building, and now we want to monitor how, first of all, our insect protection will work. We don't have any chemicals or whatever. It's just about the detailing to get the right insect protection. And now we want to monitor how the performance of these 5 different woods will be in the future for the next 10 years. We want to monitor, of course, our experimental bamboo reinforced concrete slab. And we want to evaluate how the stakeholders perceive and will use our projects. There will be the first nature-based living lab workshop next year at UNHAB, so students and professors from different parts of the world will come there and have a 6 weeks workshop. And in this workshop we will see if our ideas will finally work and our buildings will be used in the right way. Besides the pictures of the building that you have currently seen that we built with our own hands, the more conventional laboratories have been designed by our students too and are currently built on site. So what are the main insights and takeaways of this project? First, I want to talk about quality and design. It's totally different to design and draw a building or to do the realization with your own hands. So it's a huge experience to really do it yourself. As you can see here, the tropical wood was very hard and a huge difference to our wood that we have in Germany. We had a big problem to nail things. About 1/3 of all nails went crooked. So it's good to learn how things are buildable to make it more effective. And this also has, of course, insights on timing and money, because in Germany, the labor is the most expensive in our buildings. Second, the material qualities are very different in different parts of the world. Here, you would expect fantastic wood qualities. The wood was the most difficult thing in our project. The sourcing of wood was difficult. To know if the wood was from legal or illegal background was very difficult to get. The right quality to be insect resistant was very difficult to get. So it was the biggest problem of our whole project. Then, of course, as I said before, to draw something is very easy to be done, and also to build a model in scale 1:50 or 1:20 is easy to be done, but then do it in scale 1:1 is a totally different experience. And yeah, things are not that easy to do it if you have to do it with your own hands. Then it's important and great to learn from local knowledge. That was one of our main headlines, and it proved to be successful. So the local villagers, as well as the students from UNAP and the professors, identified themselves with our ideas, and that was one of the reasons, was because we picked up the Maloka overall philosophy, and also we picked up some of the building techniques. Community involvement is also important, to cooperate with neighboring villages to get acceptance, and not to be that elephant standing out there as a weird things the European did. Yeah, one important role are the celebrations in this context. Celebrate together with people from the university, with neighboring villages, and the peoples who have been all involved in our project. Yeah, sustainability is easy to be done on paper in a drawing, but if you want to do it in the end, in detail, it's difficult. We had huge resistance against some of our sustainable ideas, and we have to admit that we have not been able to work without cementers, without concrete. Even so, we tried it from the beginning. So sometimes you have to do a little bit of compromise, especially with the slab. The local users, the university also insisted to have it as a concrete slab. So the insights in management, time and cost was, yeah, again, it's all different. Plan with limitations and the unexpected. When we went to Peru, some of my students said, oh, now we oversimplified things and we will be done in 2 weeks. In reality, we had a hard time. It was almost not possible to finalize a project within 4 weeks, but then finally we did it with very hard work because so many unexpected problems came up. And here you see the sourcing of material in some parts of the world can be very complex and time-consuming, difficult, and also the safety of building materials is sometimes not that easy to prove, like in Europe, for example. Then the influence of climate, unexpected weather patterns, strong rain and dry seasons, for example, are important to keep in mind. And also, if as a European you go to a tropical country, never underestimate the climate. But I want to mention that I'm quite experienced with tropical climate in Southeast Asia. That was different because there's almost no wind in this time of the year, and so the cooling is very different to what we experience normally, for example, in Indonesia. Then what we learned is small things sometimes need a lot of time and effort. So for example, to buy some of these palm leaves meant we had to go on this very bad road for about 3 hours one way, or 2.5 hours, just to pay some money because there was no trust that we would do it later. So we had to go out there, pay the money, and go back again, and one day was already gone. And then we had to go there again after 5 days, pick up the leaves, and go back again, another day was gone. So normally in Germany you just order things and you get it on site. Here you need a lot of time for everything. Yeah, one of the most important insights for me is never underestimate culture and the human factor. So there is a different way of negotiation, there is a different way of building, different ideas of reliability, of punctuality, different way of problem solving, of course, and problem discussion. And this has to be learned, and I have to say, for us it was perfect to cooperate with a local partner from Latin America, from Ecuador, who was very helpful. I want to mention Professor Andres Salazar as a very important partner for me in this project to be successful. And one thing that is always true in architecture, there will be not enough time and not enough money, and you always need to plan with buffers in these very special building sites with lots of buffers, with a plan B and a plan C for things that might not work as expected. One thing, again, that we learned is German engineering sometimes goes over the top. I already had the feeling when we discussed our project with our structural engineers that we might have too much of wood invested in our project, and yeah, in reality, compared to other buildings, it was really massive, and we got the nickname, the building that will stand for 100 years, compared to many Malokas that stand for maybe 5 to 7 years traditionally. So I think that's also good for sustainability, but talking about the optimization of materials, for example, that's an important insight for us to learn also from other countries. Yeah, the last slide is, it's very important that our students identify with the project, then they really invest their energy and they have a very positive attitude, and we are able to do things that we never expected to be able. So that's the end of my presentation. Here, on the bottom line, you see all the supervisors involved besides me. It was Professor Daniel Hülsbeek, Professor Jan Lieske, the engineer Ingo Hopfeld, Morten Fuchs for coordination, Wolfgang Dirk as a specialist in wood building, Britta Wauer for the documentation professor, and professors from Ecuador, Carlos Avila and Andres Salazar as very important contributors, and final overall coordination for the money and the Erasmus Plus project at our university, Regina Krause. Thank you very much for listening, and now I'm open for questions. Sorry that I used up more time, but I thought I have 2 time slots for my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hackel. Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. Wow, what a holistic experience and examples. Yeah, for us, I think it is very relevant in the context of Indonesia. We just like 2 years ago, starting to run what we call the emancipated learning, Prof, or call it independent learning. That the students have the opportunity to work 40 credits outside the campus and outside maybe they can join organizations, or maybe they can work with the community and so on. I think what you just mentioned and what you just presented today gives us lots of insight on how actually in the future our independent learning can be implemented. Once again, thank you very much, Prof. Hackel. It's such a remarkable experience. Then now, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed to the Q&A session with Prof. Hackel. I will check the chat box. I think we have questions over here. Not yet. Yeah. Okay, since we're still waiting for the questions from the chat box, then I would like to ask you some questions regarding the proportion, Prof, about how many percentage of the students working in the field and about the proportion students working in the studio. Can you give us some insight about it? Thank you very much.
Okay, Yeah, thank you very much for this question. Of course, projects like the one that I just presented are very complex. Yeah, they cost a lot of money, especially if you want to do it in other countries. We did something quite similar in Wismar. Of course, that was very effective because our students could just join it while doing the normal classes. If we do it overseas, they are quite expensive because students have to travel there, they have to stay for 1 month, and that all has to be financed. We have been very lucky that the European Union with the Erasmus Plus concept financed our activities or part of these activities because the main goal is to support independence, better teaching and better research possibilities for the future for the universities in Peru and Ecuador. So that was the main goal, and that was where we got our sponsorships. But normally, it's difficult to raise money for that. So coming back to your question, we cannot offer that for all of our students. It's too much effort, it's too expensive. So I would say in average, it's about 20% of our students who could join these overseas projects. Otherwise, we try to do smaller ones like wood building workshops for example, 1 week or something like that, and also building with rammed earth, for example, or doing a similar project in Wismar, which is not that extensive or not that intensive, but lasting for a longer time. So we did it for 2 years so that students of different semesters could join into it. For us, it's very important that the students go out of the classroom because the real world is out there. Some years ago, we had a very big international workshop to explore new ways of teaching in our university, and one of the biggest insight we had lots of international contributors, professors from different universities in the world, and one of the biggest insights was go out of the classroom, get a real world for architects. Yeah, so that's what we try to follow up.
Thank you very much. Oh, we have a question here in the chat box. I should read. Okay. Dear Prof. Hackel, since the project is a user-driven applied research, how big is the involvement of the indigenous community in these projects? And will the result of this project be disseminated to users for the indigenous community, or students learn indigenous knowledge and use it in the new design? Thank you.
Yeah, actually, we have 2 different levels to cooperate with the indigenous community. So one of the levels was right now that we try to learn from the indigenous communities, from building concepts, from building philosophy, and also from the detailing and sustainable way of using local materials. So that was one of the levels. The other one is for the long-lasting effects of this project, that when the final users coming from biology, field of biology, for example, are going to use our laboratories, the goal is to very strongly cooperate with the communities, first of all to get, to participate of their knowledge, but also to integrate them into programs, for example, to better adapt to climate change, for eradication of tropical diseases or something like that. So the integration of the local communities is extremely important, and that's why we also focused first on our community building, because the community building doesn't have this feeling of, it's part of a, I would say, the modern university buildings, high tech and so on, because then there's a psychological barrier. But because it's a Maloka, it's a little bit different Maloka, but everybody had this feeling, it's connected to the past of the traditions of the Amazon region. The local communities immediately felt comfortable with this environment and enjoyed it a lot, and also didn't feel uncomfortable to cooperate with us as scientists to be together. And this community-based learning and community-based research for the future is one of the most important goals of this research program. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much once
maybe
again, Prof. Hackel, for your remarkable and insightful presentation. Please give a round of applause once again to Prof. Hackel for a wonderful presentation today. Prof. Hackel, would you just be here with us, because we will continue with Prof. Matteo Motti afterwards, and maybe if still there's some questions. Oh, sorry, there's a question from the auditorium here, Prof. Hackel. Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Michael, for excellent presentation. Well, actually, I have one question, a bit sensitive question. I'm working with kind of work that related with the infrastructure and community development, and infrastructure is one of the infrastructure actually related to the houses. And here we have a lot of friends that actually have focus on heritage, which is shape of the building is very important. But when we come into your discussion, actually you try to avoid kind of specific shape for specific tribe. Like my hat is from Yogyakarta, but the other part of my other part of my clothes is actually from West Java, and this is from West Java. It's like mix of combination of things. But I believe some of the heritage people, they want to have like originality, and yeah, you decide. I don't know who decided and how the consensus building has been built. Whether it's actually idea from the expert, from you and your friends, that you have to avoid some originality of shape, or actually it's come from the consensus building between the community. I think we need to learn about the decision, because it's quite sensitive for the heritage people. Okay, thank you, Prof. Michael.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Arif. Yeah, please, Prof. Hackel, maybe you can answer the question.
Yeah, that's a very important question, and something that we discussed a lot in the beginning. Because as you've seen in the different proposals, two of the proposals have been totally different to traditional designs, so no connection to heritage at all. And one more followed this heritage idea, but without copying the traditional building. We discussed how far should we go with the traditional building, because sometimes the Maloka idea is used by people who are not from this tribe. Yeah? And for example, for a tourist restaurant or something like that. That is perceived as a problem, I would say, because it has a strong spiritual meaning, and a strong meaning of the connection with the ancestors, for example. As you know also from traditional buildings in Indonesia, from heritage buildings in Indonesia, that they have a very strong connection to ancestors, to religious context, and so on. And if you start to copy that in different contexts, it can create a huge problem, because then it's, I want to say, it's going in direction of a Disneyland concept and not the direction of the real meaning. So our discussion was more like, should we do a new interpretation and really make a clear sign that this is a scientific Maloka. Maloka means it's a place to come together, and we, from the beginning, said it's a Maloka for scientists to come together, and that's why the detailing is different, and we have to use a different form. That was the idea, after long discussions among the students and also the professors, to follow up. Because we want to create identity without copying things. But that was, of course, something developed among us as scientists in Germany and Ecuador, and not with the Peruvians. Because the big disadvantage in this project, and I have to say I would never do it again, is that in the Amazon region there was no school of architecture. Yeah, so we had no partners to discuss it directly from the design side. So we developed different ideas, and I went with these 3 different approaches, not with our favorite one, but with the 3 different approaches. We went to the UNAP University and discussed it with future users, but also with people affected from this project. And we found out that exactly the approach that finally was built, not really building a heritage building, only using like the philosophy of creating a space for people to come together. The idea, the keyword of a scientific Maloka, which is different, which is not a heritage building, that proved to be the most attractive proposal, and the proposal that was accepted by the users and stakeholders. So that was, for us, it was very important that we don't create something in Europe and export it. We discussed it very thoroughly. I went in 2 months, 3 months before we built it. I went to Peru and discussed it with lots of different stakeholders, what would be the best idea and what philosophy and what design concept should be followed up. And it was very clear for all of them that this was the preferred version. So like connection to the past without copying the past. And I know that experiences, I studied at the National University of Singapore in the 1980s, and from that time I was always connected to Southeast Asian heritage architecture, and I really love it. Yeah, so I can only tell that for me it was a little bit risky. Things that I learned in Southeast Asia cannot be transferred to South America one-to-one. Yeah, so the perception of things is different, and the way to treat heritage is different. So one of the reasons, for example, is that all these Indo tribes are traditionally semi-nomads. So buildings are not built for a long time. Yeah, so for example, if you have traditional buildings in Sumatra, for example, or in Sulawesi, they are standing there for a long time. In the Malokas are built only for 5 to 7 years, and then people would move on. So the detailing is only done for a short period, and the building only exists for a short period, and then it's going to be built new at a different place. So different to maybe our perception of heritage. So it's more about the spirit of the building that is migrating from place to place.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Hackel. I think it's about managing change also, right? How the original spirit then should be in our contemporary era, right? Okay, but I have to stop you right here because we already have our second speaker. But before we close with Prof. Hackel, let's give another round of applause for him. Thank you very much, Prof. Hackel, for joining us today. It's such a wonderful presentation. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the challenges are right in front of our eyes. The COVID-19 pandemic was then followed by the war in Ukraine, resulting in domino effects on the energy crisis, food crisis, environmental crisis, and also economic crisis. It is predicted that the next year would be a dark year under a very big storm. In the European context, for example, a serious economic crisis is occurring in a very well-established country like Britain. It is hard to imagine how in a country like the UK, famine is starting to hit. Kids are eating chewing gum to pretend they are bringing school lunch. It will be a profound challenge on how urban communities will survive and struggle in this situation. This issue is very relevant to what our second speaker, Professor Matteo Motti from Politecnico di Milano, Italy, will address to. He will deliver his speech with the title Urban Productive Landscapes in the Context of European Cities. A very good morning to you, Prof. Motti. Are you hear my voice
Good morning.
clearly?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Okay, good.
Can you hear
Thank
me
you very
well?
much. Thank you very much for joining us today. And before Prof. Motti delivering his presentation, allow me to read some of his outstanding CV. Professor Matteo Motti is one of the adjunct professor at the Politecnico di Milano, Italy. Professor Matteo Motti graduated from the Master of Human Settlements in 2011. In 2017, he obtained a Ph.D. in Urban Planning, Design and Policy at the Politecnico di Milano under the guidance of Professor Maria Alessandra Secchi and also Professor Bruno de Mulder from KU Leuven. Between 2009 and 2015, he collaborated the Privilegios Secchi's Architecture and Urbanism firm based in Milan. And since 2009, he has been involved in research and teaching activities both in Politecnico di Milano and also at the KU Leuven in Belgium. In May 2017, Prof. Motti joined Open Fabric as team manager or leader in a wide range of projects in China, Europe, the Middle East, and Russia. Currently, Prof. Motti is part of the Council of Urbanism and Urban Renewal at the Milano municipality. Prof. Motti, we have around 30 minutes for you to deliver your presentation, and then we will proceed with the question and answers. Please, time and screen is yours, Prof.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the invitation. This morning I will try to sum up a little bit a synthesis of the research topics that I'm working with my students in university. I decided only to show you my work that belongs to the university teaching activities and university research. I teach 2 urban design studios in 2 different semesters for Politecnico of Milano. And I would like to try to sum up some future challenges or ongoing challenges that European cities has to face, in my opinion. The title is Urban Productive Landscape or Urban Ecosystems. In a way, I will try to propose an hybridization between ecological approaches to landscape and territories, systemic design in urbanism. In order to set up a common vocabulary, I will, before starting to show you some research by design results, some projects, I would like to give a little bit of a theoretical framework in order to share my starting points. With these slides, I just would like to point out some key concepts that I think we need to address when we design and plan cities or territories. Everybody today needs to face urgently the climate crisis. We are all facing increasing temperatures. We are all facing the problem of climate change. I think it's about 20 years that the discipline of urbanism, especially in Italy with Bernardo Secchi and Paolo Vidano, we talk about the relevance of natural footprints in relationship with urbanization. I think there is an interesting gap we can fill in between low-tech and high-tech approaches. So learning from the past, indeed, learning from vernacular, and try to apply to these logics also the technologies that today we have. So indeed is a lot about rediscovering from the past the balance we used to create with our environment. Before modernity, we needed to cope with nature, we needed to use nature in order to sustain our life. Another important aspect, I think, is the systemic design approach. So how can we, as much as possible, create cross benefits between different fields and systems? How we can recycle as much as possible what we have, also in terms of heritage, infrastructures, all those artifacts that we have been building in the past 50 years. And all these led us to the idea of the urban metabolism. What if we start to think about our cities, our territories, as human bodies that have an urban metabolism, that have different components that needs to work well and to be healthy in order to have the entire body working. As I mentioned before, I just would like to share with you a couple of important stories, in my opinion. André Corbeau in the 20th century conceived the city territory, as a palimpsest that is constantly overwritten. The palimpsest was the old book that monks were using to write, that was constantly cancelled, erased, and rewritten, erased and rewritten. Somehow this is a metaphor that suits well our territorial conditions, where we often retrace, rewrite part of our history, but the past is always there. So what Corbeau is asking as a geographer to his colleagues and to the architects, to the urban designers, to the spatial planners, is to discover the uniqueness of each territory and try to recycle those materials that can today rediscovered under a new light. A second very important milestone, in my opinion, is Alan Berger with the systemic design approach. Systemic design can change the world. He believes that with the systemic design approach, about systemic flows, water, capital, pollution, waste, development, animal migration. He believes that between the regional scale and the local site, we can act and we can find synergies in order to start a systemic design approach. A third very important book, in my opinion, is Techniques and Civilization by Lewis Mumford, written in the beginning of the 20th century. And I come from Politecnico, so I'm glad that I can, let's say, state the relevance and the importance to have different disciplines working together, and believing that technology is twofold, as Lewis Mumford was writing in 1934. A polytechnique which enlists many different modes of technology, providing a complex framework to solve human problems, and monotechnique, which is technology only for its own sake, which oppresses humanity as it moves along its own trajectory. So the importance of using technology not for its own sake, but opening up to many disciplines in order to address the complexity of human societies. And I think there is this sentence that is quite up to date. And if you allow me, I would like to read it. We're now faced with a period of consolidation and systematic assimilation. Western civilization as a whole, in other words, is in a condition that new pioneering countries like the United States found themselves in. Once all their free lands had been taken up and their main line of transportation and communication laid out, it must now begin to settle down and make the most of what it has. Dynamic equilibrium, not indefinite progress, is the mark of the opening age. Balance, not rapid one-sided advance. Conservation, not reckless pillage. So I do believe that dynamic equilibrium is a very important word that we can definitely need to think about today. I don't know if some of you visited Italy or the Mediterranean in general, and I don't know if you know what is this picture about. It is mainly about salt pans. These are man-made productive landscape, and I think, in my opinion, this is one of the very interesting example of vernacular landscape urbanism project. It's a man-made extension of the land into the sea. It's a creation of different ponds with different heights, going from the sea to the land. The level of these ponds is diminishing, is shrinking down, until the very last ponds where water evaporates and we can have salt out of the water. So the goal of this productive landscape is to produce salt that we use in our kitchens, or we use, for example, to defroze ice on airplanes in winter times. And there is a very interesting dynamic equilibrium in this productive landscape, because in a way we are creating a new landscape that is man-made, that is going into water and using water, was driven by renewable energy resource, such as the windmills that you see in the picture. The energy produced by the windmills was moving water, because water needs to move along these ponds. And as a consequence, because of the very strong presence of salt, this landscape creates a very specific biodiversity. So flamingos and other birds find in these places the nutrients that suits their metabolism. So in a way, and thirdly, I think is a beautiful added value to landscape. With the sunset, the reflection of pink and shades of pink because of the different levels of water, the horizon that is enlarged by the system of canals, and today, for example, in Motti and Trapani in Sicily, those are UNESCO heritage. So somehow is a new landscape, is producing an economy, so it has a benefit from humans, and is generate a specific place for birds. So in my opinion, this is a project, is a prototype of what I would like to apply in contemporary projects, that we should apply in contemporary projects. Probably another key important reference is Emerald Necklace Park, designed by Olmsted brothers. I don't know if you're familiar with Boston, but this project is very interesting. It's the opposite of Central Park. Probably is the most famous project by Olmsted brothers. But what is interesting, in my opinion, in Emerald Necklace, that it's a park, but it's not only a park. It's an infrastructures. Is taking water from the canal. Is using water. Is collecting rainwater. Is a place for animals, for very rich biodiversity, for people to have spaces to enjoy life, to make sports, to have fun, and it manage all the rainwater system. So somehow it's belonging to the infrastructural realms. In fact, I do believe that today, in order to upgrade our territories, in order to face climate and economical crisis, we can simply turn our assets, our infrastructural systems, into multifunctional ones, combining different aspects, as Lewis Mumford was asking for, social, economics, environmental, all together. So the main questions I share with my students when we work on the urban design studios I teach is how we can ameliorate and qualify the contemporary territories and habitats through the disciplines of urbanism, landscape architecture, and spatial planning. What are the phenomena lying below the crises and mutations of contemporary territories? So probably design is not a final output. I believe that is a particular form of inquiry. How current design culture and practice can adequately cope with ongoing urban changes? How to redefine design tools able to challenge the today dynamics of urban transformation. As designer, we need to think about what are the proper tools we use to design, and we should question them, and we should reformulate them according to the contemporary needs. And lastly, how to present urban challenges feedback into design theory. I just focus on three key topics. One is reprofiling mobility infrastructures. In Europe, at least, in many European cities, after the 60s, the 70s, where our economies were booming, and we had data about demographic increase, we started to build roads, highways, ring roads, big roads, because we were thinking that we were growing a lot. Today, we didn't grow as we were expecting, and our infrastructures often are redundant, are oversized, are underused. Somehow they are wasteful in a way. So I do believe that we can start by reprofiling mobility infrastructures in different ways, in cities, in small towns, in city territories. And we can rethink the role of trees in contemporary mobility. And this is just a provocation. What if we start to downgrade infrastructures, and instead of thinking about putting beautiful trees, we conceive infrastructures as productive landscapes for the production of biomass and the management of rainwater due to the heavy rain bombs that we are facing due to the climate change. So can we turn mobility infrastructures into water-resilient landscape and productive landscape? So in this image, you start to see the decolonization of the asphalt, the plantation of specific trees that can feed into a biomass economy, with an end result where we keep just 2 lanes for each direction for cars, we introduce bikes, we introduce water retention ponds, and the landscape it's feeding an economy. So those trees grow very fast. In 5 years, they are chopped down and they become biomass. So also is a place where people will work, will cut the trees, So it's constantly changing. And out of the biomass economy, we can have different outputs: wood products, feed production, fuels, and chemicals. So wood and the leaves and other components of trees can create a lot of different products. Then considering rural as a part. Often in Europe, we have agriculture due to the modernization, due to the production from a very diverse landscape. We have monothematic landscape. We tend to create large areas producing one crop for the production good. And this is not working very well with the biodiversity and with I think the opportunity that agricultural fields offer to people. So I do believe that we have also this challenge to face, considering rural as a part, turning agricultural areas into park system, accessible, without denying the production, of course. So what if we bring into the rural camping, touristic attraction, open exhibition, view platform, and how we can combine it with sharing, learning, community, farming activities for the citizens that just live behind these places. So, for example, in Piacenza territory, under the city of Piacenza, what if we simply create some areas where we can change the type of crops, going into biocrops, rediscovering lost seeds and crops that can help to better understand our culture, and simply choosing to just trace a bicycle trajectory, a bicycle path, and going into it. And what if we start to bring also an ecological level into the agricultural fields? Often canals and rivers are not anymore those ecological corridors that used to be. So in a way, we need to replant those water lines, and in a way, we should bring again back ecology into these productive landscapes. And these kind of bioswales and tiny ecological corridors can be also corridors for humans to enjoy the open space in nature. And we can simply intervene as with an acupuncture approach with new inclusive infrastructures, small architectures that can be places where we can have rest, where we can be repaired from the sun. We can do bird watching with small towers. We can go up and see the landscape. Often, for example, in this context, near Piacenza, the agricultural fields are very flat, so we can't really understand where we are. And so these kind of small inclusive infrastructures can help humans orient themselves, etc., etc. And sometimes by simply creating an edge where people can sit in front of an ecological bioswale. A third topic I think is really relevant to turning rural into a part, a multi-functional productive landscape is agroforestry. So agroforestry can be really a way in which we multiply the variety of the landscape based on the specific condition in order to break down the monotonous agricultural fields. The third topic is urban ecosystem, and probably it's what I would like to conclude with. Probably we should start to go. Every cities in Europe has the rural just nearby, just out from the city edge, or sometimes the rural is integrated with the urban. So that's why I would like to reflect about the word urban ecosystem, which entangle together rural and the urban. And ecosystem because probably urban productive landscape should be way more similar to ecosystem rather than productivity approaches. And I would like to show you a design thesis I've been guiding with Alan Inouye that graduated last year. And we started to work on this abandoned industrial area in Arbatax, former paper mill production, in a beautiful landscape in Sardinia. And what does it mean to deal with an abandoned industrial area on the edge of the sea? So the systemic design reclamation tried to touch different aspects, of course, sustainability, adaptability and resiliency, and open-endedness. How we can create a project that is able to fit into current needs and open up to future possibilities. So it's about a fine balance between minimum input, between try to bring in as much as possible the energy of the context, but also looking at the large-scale environmental interventions and the socioeconomic spheres. So somehow it's really trying to apply the systemic design approach of Berger into this area. So how somehow also is a way to reinterpret a traditional SWOT analysis. In this case, is about water management, how we can really find innovative way of keeping water, how we can use waste as part of this new urban metabolism, dealing with, of course, abandonment, and tourism, which is the main economic source of the area, can be involved into it, and of course, agricultural production. The sites rely just behind a very interesting natural reservoir, which is this lake right here. But the edge of this lake today is not at all designed as a space that can be used for humans. So the challenge.
Excuse me to interrupt, Prof. Motti.
Yes.
You have 5 minutes to go. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
I know. Thank you very much. I'm on the way to conclude. So the challenge here is to bring in the river system, the ecological, the biodiversity of the river system into a new waterfront around the lake and into the industrial site. So it's only thanks to this kind of territorial approach that we can bring in new energies in the site. And these are some images that would like to show how the incremental approach is designed. A second thesis project I would like to show you is Monte Amiata, the beautiful region in the center of Italy. It's a beautiful productive landscapes that used to be very, in the past, in the 70s, in the 80s, a very strong economy, and today it went down. So how we can turn this, let's say, sleeping productive landscape into a dynamic one? And probably this has a lot to do with the pandemic. We are rediscovering remote landscape, and as citizens, we escape from the city to find places where we can work remotely, in balance with nature and within nature. So all this heritage present on site related to the productive rural world or related to other type of productive landscapes, such as the coal mining, such as this one, can today turn into a new layer, which is the new accommodation for nomad workers that can find in this remote and sleeping landscape places to work, to stay, to enjoy life. And so it reversed the logic of seasonal tourism into 365 days a year tourism. So all these abandoned places can become part of a new metabolism for new target groups. I would like to conclude by showing you this interesting map of Olivier Coutard, where he put behind the network approach, that is how our cities are made of, and the urban ecosystem concept. So somehow the network, and I would like just to focus probably on some of them, such as, for example, linear metabolism, extraction, supply, evacuation, production, waste. Today we are reversing the logic. It's about circular metabolism, recycling, reuse, retrieval. Very, very close to vernacular ways of dealing with human settlements. Long cycle loop opening, network. Short cycle loop reclosing, urban ecosystem. Irreversibility, momentum, inflexibility, sector-based and sequential management, reversibility, adaptability, cross-sector and integrated management. Thank you very much. The presentation is finished and I am available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Motti from Politecnico di Milano, Italy, for a remarkable presentation. Thank you, Prof. I think what you have mentioned, even though it is in the context of European cities, I think it is very much relevant to also in developing countries such as Indonesia. Okay, I would like to invite to all of you to raise your question via chat box, or you may raise your hand in the Zoom. Or is there any question from the auditorium, please? Okay, not yet. Then I want to raise a question for you, Prof. Motti. Yeah, you mentioned about, I think it is also relevant in Indonesian context, yeah, that we are now living most is urban area and then also in rural urban area and also in a rural area. Our government is actually about 7 years ago is already trying to implement the development in mostly in rural areas so that it can slowing a bit urbanization, so that people are not keen to go to urban area as we know that such as in Indonesia, like 50% of the inhabitants now live in urban area. Do you have any perspective or insights about how this kind of rural area should develop? Because in our context now, the government still too many spend their money on infrastructure only, yeah, not in terms of developing the human resources. Or and also I think it's very interesting also to see some of your pictures about that infrastructures, not only something kind of engineering, but also can also have other functions such as ecology, or maybe more productive like economic and also social functions such as for recreation and so on. Do you have insight about this? Thank you.
I do believe that what you have is as an opportunity is to learn from everything that we as, let's say, Europeans did in a bad way, in a way that often we have been eating up agriculture in order to enlarge the footprint of cities and urbanization. So somehow I believe that the future is creating compact and dense cities and keeping as much as possible the rural and the agricultural areas as they are. Of course, we are growing, but I do believe that rural areas should not become as the urban areas, but they should keep their quality and approaches. So I don't know if you are facing the phenomenon, but probably sooner or later, people from the main cities would like to work and to live in places that are more quiet. And so the challenge is not to over-design those places, but really to keep the difference of these places in order to give an alternative to people choosing to live in a metropolitan area, big cities, or in a remote rural area.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, not to over design our rural area. Okay, well, there's a question from the chat box here for Professor Motti. Rural as garden is very interesting concepts. However, the most problem is the people itself. How do you think to overcome this? Since the resources is not as high as in the city. It's from Nora Abdullah. Please, Prof. Motti, do you have insight about this?
I don't know if I understood the question. I don't know what, I don't understand the question. Can you explain why people is the problem?
Yeah, I think Nora Abdullah, can you speak up from your Zoom, please?
People, because there's no people in the rural areas, so you mean how to have people going into the rural, is this the question?
Sorry, I think I lost connection
How
here.
to deal with the rural people? I don't think that there is a difference between rural people or because what I talk about are the rural and agricultural condition close to the cities. So when I say rural as a park, because rural areas can be really conceived as a park for the citizens, for the people from the cities that needs to escape and maybe do a 20 minutes bicycle journey and they reach a rural area that can be considered as a park. So I do believe that rural as a park is for citizens that needs to escape the speed of the city. I don't know if it's clear.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Motti. I think since the time also reaching to our 3 p.m. Once again, thank you very much, Prof. Motti, and let's give him a round of applause. Thank you so much, and let me briefly wrap and highlight some of the important points from two of our speakers today. First is from Prof.Dr. Marcus Hackel. He presented a very important, what we call the experiential learning, how we collaborate together from various countries, not only from European but also in Southeast Asia, or even America, South America, that is quite remote. Yeah, they work together to learn from nature, to work something, and to this. I think this is going to be our future education, architectural education, and all over the world. That is design build. Yeah, we learn from the nature and then we build together with the community, as well as learning from them and make a new interpretation. And our second presenter, Professor Matteo Motti from Politecnico di Milano, Italy, he mentioning about the productive urban space. That infrastructure is not only engineering, but can also function as social, economic, and also ecology. I think this is very much important if we relate it with food security that now we are facing too. Ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end part of our plenary session. I would like to say thank you once again to Prof.Dr. Marcus Hackel here and to Professor Matteo Motti for valuable experience, thought, and interesting talk, and to all of the audience for your active participation. Hopefully the presentation will be beneficial for everybody. Thank you very much for your attention. See you again in our next eduARCHsia conference. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arif and Professor Hackel and also Professor Motti for the very insightful sharing. Let us give applause one more time to our speakers and moderators. And thank you. And now, okay, you can also give virtual applause there in the Zoom. And now it's time for us to also share our rewards to you. And very special, today we're going to give 3 prizes for the lucky one. Okay, we're going to do a lucky draw, and I'm going to show you some. We have wheels of names. Okay. Okay, the operator is ready. Okay, we're going to do lucky draw for 3 lucky names, and for all of the participants of eduARCHsia 2022, if your name is there, so we'll contact you so that you can get your prize. Okay, ready? Okay. Okay, please count with me. 1, 2, 3. Okay, roll the names. And the lucky one is... Okay, wait, don't. Okay, Afif Yoda Wursita. Congratulations. The committee will contact you later for the prizes. And then, okay, let's do the second one, okay? Now let's count in Bahasa Indonesia together, okay? 1, 2, 3. And the second winner is... Wow, it's so colorful, so many names. Nabila Salma Fasha, okay. Okay, now the third one. Okay, anyway, today the topic is in our studio we have traditional costume. Okay, maybe this one we will count in Javanese, okay? It's Siji Loro Telu, okay? Ready? Siji Loro Telu. And the third winner is... Okay. Aris Rian Kurniawan. Okay. Congratulations to all of the winners. Please, committee will contact you for the prize. And ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to move to the moment that you've been waiting for, which is the announcement of winners for Best Paper and Best Presenter. And for this, I would like to invite Associate Professor Wisnu Hendrawan Bayuaji, our chairperson of eduARCHsia 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our chairperson, eduARCHsia 2022, Mr. Wisnu.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Felani. Honorable speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen. Finally, we have reached the end of eduARCHsia 2022 conference. It is a sad occasion because we shall be closing the door on lively and stimulating debate, as well as bidding farewell to friends and colleagues. However, it is also a privilege and an honor to be entrusted with such an undertaking at a gathering of such eminent people from different parts of the world. As we have heard over the past 3 days, there are uncertainties in many aspects of our lives, and we must ensure at all times that the Earth's precious resources are distributed equally amongst humanity for today and tomorrow. I am grateful to see that through this conference, we had put our efforts, knowledges, and visions to assure the longevity of both the Earth and humanity. Amongst these contributions of ideas and thoughts, we discovered a couple of views, both written and presented, which we think deserve special accolade. On behalf of the scientific committee, I would like to congratulate the following authors. Congratulations, Mr. Bramasta, and to Mr. IGN Antaryama, who is selected as the best presenter in the conference. Congratulations to both of you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all of you, I would like to thank the director, the dean, the head of department, and to all the speakers and the panel members that helped make the event a great success. I would like to also express my gratitude to those who have been involved in organizing this conference. Prominent among them are the members of the scientific committee, organizing committee, who spent time and effort to see this conference through. We also appreciate the support from the media in covering our activities and spreading the view expressed here to be disseminated to a wider readership and audience. Thank you all, and may Allah bless us all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for our chairperson, and congratulations one more time for the winners of Best Paper and also Best Presenter Award in the eduARCHsia 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, now please join me to welcome the Vice Dean of Faculty of Civil Engineering and Planning, Universitas Islam Indonesia, Dr. Fitri Nugraheni, to deliver closing remark. To Dr. Fitri, the space is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of our Dean, Dr. Maharika, I would like to read the closing remarks from him. Every conference always gives a lot of memory. The first is the memory of what is the topic of discussion. Second one is how science developed through various presentation and discussion. Clearly, there are many messages that can be learned. First, Professor Kubota has made us aware that climate change is a reality that needs to be adequately addressed. We still need to work hard to build a real contribution to this. There is still much homework for this, and at the same time to strengthen our intention together. Second, moral message from other keynote speakers, such as Dr. Revianto, show that uncertainty is highly variable. It is imperative for us humans to be able to develop positive adaptations, especially when it comes to the digital space. This space does not simplify the problem, but instead exacerbates the existing condition. Third, in many cases, we have historical records of the various processes in the society of adaptation to uncertain change. Keynote speakers such as Professor Hackel, Professor Motti, and Professor Altrock, and Professor Kemas has reported that our obligation is to explore it either with a historical study or a comprehensive design study. Finally, the message of friendship have been conveyed through this conference. Close contact and discussion between one expert and another is expected to be able to build a practical community on how we share on our planet Earth. With these various messages, on behalf of Islamic University of Indonesia, we are grateful for the contribution of all parties and declare this conference closed. Hopefully, we can meet again in the next eduARCHsia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much to our Vice Dean, Dr. Fitri, for reading the closing remark from the Dean. Ladies and gentlemen, to get blessing and also to end our eduARCHsia 2022 with happiness, we would like to invite one of the lecturer from faculty from architecture department to lead the prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gus Maza.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's take a moment to raise our hand, to bow our heads, to say a prayer in the hope that this international conference, eduARCHsia 2022, that we are participating in, will be blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma inna nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan tayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbala. Ya Allah, we thank you for the opportunity to gather today. Be with us as we leave this meeting. Help us walk with confidence and lead us with your truth as we move forward and praise you and live our lives in this world. Accept our gratitude and allow us to depart from this place with a full mind and soul as we go to various destinations. Ya Allah, we thank you for the success of the meeting. We know this won't be possible without your provision, and we offer everything to you as we conclude. Thank you for the disputes that made us stronger together. Thank you for the wisdom you have imparted to each and every one of us. Thank you for the guiding love that keep us on the right track and led you to the righteousness. Rabbana zalamna anfusana وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Amin ya Rabbal Alamin. Thank you very much, Gus Maza, for leading the prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our program. But before we would like to say see you in the next eduARCHsia, I would like to invite all of the lecturers, professors, and everyone, staff from architecture department, to say see you to all of the participants of eduARCHsia. We would like to invite you all to come to the stage. Okay, the camera can move to the stage now, please. We can move to the camera 1. Yes, okay. And we would like to invite those in the Zoom also to turn on your camera. And as you see that today we are all wearing traditional clothes, okay. Some are wearing kebaya, batik, and also many other traditional clothes. So this is our celebration for sharing the earth together in the age of uncertainty. Okay, so I would, professors, lecturers, and all the staff, together on my count, we will say, see you in the next eduARCHsia, okay? Okay. Okay, ready? It's a video, Okay, see you in the next eduARCHsia, that's the word, okay. 1, 2, 3. See you in the next eduARCHsia. Thank you and see you. Let's give applause to all of you. And don't forget those in the Zoom to give your best smile because the operator will also take your photo from the screenshot. Okay. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and sampai jumpa.